Chase Elliott wins in a wreck-filled Texas race, and one of those wrecks came at the end between Ross Chastain and William Byron. We're going to talk about that coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, Chase Elliott wins. March 13 months ago, Chase Elliott had the broken leg. Things were looking bleak. There was all kinds of talk. He missed the playoffs. He got suspended for wrecking Denny Hamlin. There was all kinds of crazy talk like fire Alan Gustafson. Culminating in that 13 months, the 42 race winless streak. All that is gone today because Chase Elliott went out there and got the deal done and won the race. So finally, all of that talk can settle down and quiet down, because I said, I've talked about it on some of the live streams. He has been more focused this season than he was last season. Last season, I think with everything going on, he was a little bit unfocused, unlike himself. This season, he has come back and he has looked more focused. And I think because of some of those things that were going on last season, I think when he wrecked Denny Hamlin and got himself suspended, I think you could see the lack of focus there. I think he was pressing too hard. He started focusing on some of the wrong things. Some of the pressure just sort of got to him a little bit, and he just wasn't the same guy last year. But this year, I've said on multiple live streams, he looks way more focused. I've been talking about his position in the points, even though he doesn't have the win. I said the win is coming, and the win came today. So like I said, this season, he looked like the Chase Elliott of old, and I just assume it's going to continue to go like this because he is one of the best drivers on one of the best teams. And so I never really worried about it, but all the people who were like, fire Alan Gustafson, Chase Elliott's not the same as he was, got to eat some crow today because Chase Elliott got the deal done. Let's see what he had to say after the race. This from Zach Strunilio. I hope I said that right, via NASCAR.com. I've just been really proud of our group for sticking together, Elliott said, because I'm sure a lot of guys have been around the sport long enough to understand and know that when you have a couple of bad years, a period of time that things aren't going well, it is so easy to jump ship and start bailing out on one another. I think that the win is great. All that stuff is fantastic, but I'm truthfully most proud of the journey and the group of people that we've climbed back up together with. We've made each other better. They pushed me to be a better driver and a better person. I think the longer it goes, the more ways you can find to either not run good or lose races. It can make it tougher, Elliott said. To me, honestly, this journey and everything about today is really a credit to the guys that sit in our meetings on Monday mornings in the 9 room. That starts with Alan. So the first thing of those comments that I want to address is the loyalty. Chase Elliott is a loyal person, and he appreciates this group for being loyal. He said he's proud of the win, right? But he said he's more proud to do it with this group because they have stuck together through thick and thin, through the down times and through the good times. Easy to stick with it with the good times, right? But they've had a couple of down seasons. If you include this one, the season, 2 seasons ago, he had statistically the best season, but they stuck through it and they've come out on the end of it and they finally got that win that he knew was coming. So he is glad that this group is loyal. And I think that that is a good characteristic that you want to have in any teammate, in any realm of life, whether it's work or sports or whatever. You always want to have a group that is loyal. The second thing I want to address is that he's got faith in this group. He said this group pushes him to be a better driver and a better person. So not only is he connected to this group through what he basically does as his job, but he also likes this group because he said they push him to be a better person. So I like the faith that he has in his whole team, not only to win races, but to make him a better person, to make him a better driver, to help him build at his craft. He has absolute faith, and he's glad that none of those guys left him, which goes back to the loyalty thing. But he has faith in this group, and that is another thing you have to win championships, of which he already has one of. And then the final aspect of this is one I've wanted to address for a long time, but I'm glad I can finally do it. There was a whole bunch of talk in the offseason and all of last season of, do they need to get rid of Alan Gustafson? Do they need to fire Alan Gustafson? And I'm glad that Chase Elliott said that this whole team starts with Alan Gustafson. He is the rock to this team, and I'm glad that he's sticking up for his guy because Chase Elliott has seen all the fire Alan Gustafson stuff, which in my opinion is ridiculous. I think Alan Gustafson is one of the best crew chiefs in the game, and the fact that Chase Elliott knows that, I'm glad that he actually came out. Chase Elliott doesn't say a whole lot, but what he does say, because he doesn't say a whole lot, it has a whole lot of added weight to it when he actually does say something. So I'm glad that he came out and finally kind of, in his own way, addressed the Alan Gustafson stuff, saying that, hey, this whole team starts with Alan Gustafson. He is the leader of this team. He is our guy. He's basically coming out and saying, Alan Gustafson is my guy, and he's not going anywhere. And so I thought that that was a big thing for Chase Elliott to say, especially where he just got this victory, where he could have just been talking about, oh man, this victory is great. But he came out and basically made a point to say, hey, Alan Gustafson is our guy, and we're going to stick with him. And I think that is huge, and I think this win overall is huge for them. Gets a big weight off of their shoulders and shows how focused the whole team has been this season. One final thing, this was Chase Elliott's first win in the Hooters-sponsored car. Hooters has sponsored him for a long time, but this is his first win in a Hooters car. And I thought it was really cool that he went and did the Polish victory lap to honor Alan Kulwicki. You could tell how much Alan Kulwicki meant to him. He even talked about, how much respect he had for him because Alan Kulwicki had beat his dad to win that championship in '92. So it was a really cool deal that Chase Elliott, you could see it even meant more to him. Yeah, the 42 race winless streak was good to get off of his shoulders, but also to win with that sponsor on his car so he could honor Alan Kulwicki. I thought that was a really, really cool thing as well. All right, now let's get on to the Ross Chastain, William Byron deal. This is from Tad Hayslip. Hopefully I said your name right there, from NASCAR.com. I don't want to do that to anyone, Byron said, but I was just far enough inside that I was there. I had a run, and it's the last lap. We always race really well, so I don't want to do that to him. Unfortunately, it just kind of came together there. Nothing you can really do about that. It's just racing. I had a run, and I was there, and it happened. Chastain finished 32nd and declined to comment on the incident with Byron after he was cleared and released from the Texas Infield Care Center. So a lot of Ross Chastain fans are pretty angry at William Byron, but I'm going to be honest with you. I like both drivers, but I have to agree with William Byron here. I do feel like it was a racing incident. Ross Chastain was going for it. He overdrove it a little bit. He had to check up and let up out of the gas. And William Byron just had a big run, and the closing rate was so rapid that he really didn't have time to react. There's not a whole lot he could have done. Unless he just, sort of wrecked himself. But that's if you see the closing rate the way it is. I really just feel like it's a racing incident. I think William Byron is all over it as far as that goes. And as far as Ross Chastain not having a comment, leaving the infield, I think that's the smartest thing Ross Chastain could have done. You saw last season and the seasons before, the media just likes to spin up stuff with Ross Chastain because he gets good traction. He's just one of those superstars like that. But they tried to build the whole thing with him versus Denny Hamlin. They tried to make it way bigger than it was, trying to paint Ross Chastain as a villain. So I 100% don't blame him for not speaking to the media because, God knows how they could have twisted the mainstream media. God knows how they could have twisted his words, to make it a bigger deal. And then all of this week we were talking about, William Byron versus Ross Chastain, which, that's how they, sell advertisement space and stuff like that. So I'm glad that he did the smart thing and not give the comment because he knew what they were going to try to do is try to run with it and have a controversy to build into the next race, which is Talladega, which, nobody's going to do anything at Talladega. Way too dangerous for any type of payback or anything like that. Now on to the actual race itself. The race itself was filled with tons of cautions. It had a lot of strategy to it because of said cautions, and there was just a mixed bag of what everybody was doing, and you didn't really see what everybody was doing to the very end, strategy-wise, which created an interesting top 10. So that's really all I can say about the race because there's no way I could go through everybody's strategy there. But let's just look at this top 15, who had a good race and who had a bad race, basically. Chase Elliott, of course, gets the 42 race winless streak off of his back there. He finishes first. Brad Keselowski finishes second. If this thing had gone green all the way through with Brad Keselowski having those fresh tires, he might have punched that first victory for Ford and broke his own winless streak that sits at 100 and something. William Byron finishes third, continues his great season. Of course, the contact with Ross Chastain, a little bit of a bummer there for the Chastain gang. But like I said, I think that was a racing incident. Tyler Reddick finishes fourth, continues his good season. Daniel Suarez with a nice 5th place finish there. Needed that to build a little bit of momentum up for his points run, even though he has won a race and he's locked in basically. Chase Briscoe ends up in 6th place there. Good run for Chase Briscoe. That is after he made a little bit of contact in one of those cautions. So he definitely rallied to get that 6th place finish. Bubba Wallace in 7th place there. He had some trouble of his own, but he rallies to get a 7th place finish there. Austin Dillon definitely needed this run. In 8th place, Austin Dillon, RCR, coming through with the strategy. Justin Alexander, in only 2 races with Austin Dillon this season so far, already has a top 10, and his teammate Kyle Busch right behind him in 9th place. They started with a backup car, dead last on the field, and Kyle Busch gets a 9th place finish. So good race for RCR as a team and for both of the drivers, of course. Carson Hocevar also rallied. He was definitely one of those wrecks earlier that almost collected Kyle Busch. Ironically enough, he ends up in 10th place and takes over the points for the rookie battle over Josh Berry. Joey Logano, Ryan Preece, Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr., Chris Buescher round out your top 15. And another surprise there, finishing 16th in the 16 car, Ty Dillon. He always gets a lot of flack, but he had a good race today. Probably one of the best finishes I've seen him have in quite some time. I would probably say 3 or 4 years, probably his best finish, 16th there. All right, now that I'm done simping for Ty Dillon, let's talk about who had a bad race, and there can only really be 2 people that come to mind. The first being Kyle Larson. He led and won the first stage, had a great car, probably one of the best cars all race. They lost the wheel under one of those cautions, the Alex Bowman caution. He lost the wheel, and that basically, for as good as the other Hendrick cars run, this did not help the Hendrick cars. So the Hendrick day was like half and half. 2 cars did poorly and 2 cars did well. But yeah, big Kyle Larson and the gang over there at the 5 camp. That's got to be. That's going to probably bother them for a long time because they had a really fast car, but that loose wheel that eventually came off, that cost them the win. And the other one, of course, being Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain had basically a 2nd place or a 3rd place, depending on how that was going to play out at the end. He basically had that locked up, but then the contact at the end with William Byron. So those, to me, just stand out as being bad race. And Ford, I guess you could technically throw Ford in there because Ford looked like they were set up to have a nice run to possibly get their first win of the season, but they didn't get it. So I would say, I guess, a bad race for Ford because they haven't won yet, but they're creeping on it. They're right there at it. Speaking of which, let's look at the manufacturer's points real quick. And with 6 wins on the season, Chevrolet has the lead at 338 over Toyota, who has 3 wins at 322. Chevrolet's wins, 5 of them have come from Hendrick. 1 of them, of course, coming from Trackhouse. And Ford sits at 0 wins, but they're not out of the ballgame. They're sitting at 297 points. So a few wins, that'll get them right back into the game. So even though they don't have the wins, the race is still close for the manufacturer's championship. Now let's look at the driver's points. Kyle Larson continues to lead the way at 335 over Martin Truex Jr., who has 318. Denny Hamlin is next at 3rd with 307. Then you got Chase Elliott, who jumped up to 4th with the win. William Byron in 5th. Ty Gibbs in 6th. Ryan Blaney in 7th. Tyler Reddick in 8th. Then you got Bubba Wallace in 9th. Christopher Bell in 10th. Ross Chastain in 11th. Chase Briscoe in 12th. Chris Buescher in 13th. 14th is Alex Bowman, and tied for 15th is going to be Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. And this becomes very important as to where the tiebreaker, I mean, of course, we got a long season to go, but if the season ended today, this would be important because below them, whoever would get 16th in that tiebreaker, sits Daniel Suarez, who already has a win in 18th, Brad Keselowski 17th. But since Daniel Suarez has the win, that would bump out whoever lost the tiebreaker there between Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek 19th and 20th. So there are your first 4 looking in, except Suarez is actually in. Yeah, so that's confusing, but we got plenty of season to go, so we'll see how that sorts out, but I always like to keep track of it. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll keep making these things. If you got a question or comment or anything like that, I try to get to as many of them as I can, so leave it down in the comment section. I'll try to get to them. And if you want to help out the channel, visit the merch store. The link is in the description. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.